All right, so welcome back. In this particular episode, I've invited a good friend of mine, Michael Stallard, to come and talk to us a little bit about what I think might be a rather ironical uh, uh, point of view or concept that we're dealing with here right now. Michael Stallard is president and co-founder of the Connection Culture Group and ePluribus Partners. He's a recognized expert in leadership, team, and organization culture and employee engagement. He gives keynote speeches. The guy writes books, blah, 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 blah. He's a big, smart guy. And he's got a whole bunch of very important corporations and organizations who take what he says very seriously. So um, I thought I would totally abuse our friendship and see if I could have him say a couple of interesting things. Mike, good to see you. Thanks for taking the time.
Thanks, Dave. It's always great to be with you.
You are the connection culture guy. You're all about connection. You're all about the way organizations and teams come together, communicate, get things done, unite, and achieve just amazing results. These are kind of weird times for connection, aren't they, Michael? What are your observations, first of all, about becoming connected and staying connected through this time? And I think we can start there. What are your thoughts in general on it?
Well, Dave, coming into this before the coronavirus pandemic hit, we already were experiencing an epidemic of loneliness, is what several, researchers have concluded. And the most current research we've seen came from Cigna, the insurance company. They conducted it last year, and it was late last year. They released the report early this year, and they found that 61% of American adults, so that's 18 and over, were lonely based on the results of the UCLA Loneliness Scale, which is the gold standard of assessments for loneliness. And that's a huge issue. Three-fifths of Americans are lonely, and that puts us in a position where there's a higher risk that our bodies will be in a state of stress response. And you see that in the data too. Gallup research concluded that 80% of Americans were afflicted by stress, is what they self-reported. So that's going into the coronavirus outbreak. And then, so suddenly you have this transmissible disease from asymptomatic individuals. So someone may show no signs, and yet you could pick up this disease. Mm-hmm. We have the impact that it has on the economy is a stressor for people, concern about their own health, but also the health of loved ones who are vulnerable. And, that's dialed up the stress even another notch. Mm-hmm. And now that we have many organizations we were just on the phone with Memorial Sloan Kettering, people we know there this morning, another a nonprofit organization that I can't mention, very large, is moving almost entirely to remote work. And that has implications in terms of increasing loneliness and social isolation. The difference being lonely, we could be around people but not feel connected to them. Mm-hmm. Where social isolation is we're not even around people. Mm-hmm. And so if you are working remotely at home and you're living alone, which we have the highest percentage of people living alone in American history, it's about 28% of the households. It's about 50% in Manhattan. And we also have the highest percentage worldwide, based on recorded history. That makes a lot of people very vulnerable to the negative effects mm-hmm. of loneliness and social isolation, which is to dial up stress. Mm-hmm. But it also affects it affects the allocation of blood glucose and oxygen to different parts of our body. It makes us not feel well mm-hmm. if we're stuck in a state of stress for a long period of time. And so the implications it's really important for people to understand that they need connection now more than ever. And yet it's challenging because we have to preserve this physical distance. So that's the conundrum we find ourselves in right now.
Technology. I mean, here we are, you and I, talking into mm-hmm. screens, you're very well lit. I'm not. You have a great microphone. I don't. But anyhow, technology. It's enabling. It's great that we have
Mhm.
it. We're lucky to live in a time when we can do this type of thing. Is there a danger with this technology in your mind?
Well, I think if you rely on it too much, there can be a danger. I find, I guess, a good way to think about it is, I would prefer if everybody had someone at home with them. They were living with someone and not living alone. Because I believe the research shows, and this isn't clear, I would say, from the research, but let's say it's correlation rather than causation research.
Hmm.
But when you connect all the dots, it can be dangerous to live alone
Hmm.
in times of high stress. And so I would prefer everybody had someone with them,
Hmm.
number one. And in addition to that, doing things like we're doing, Dave,
Hmm.
friends who are connecting
Hmm.
online. I love this. I'm connecting with my family this way, with old friends, um, with clients. It's I'm grateful for these technologies
Hmm.
because they really do help us connect more broadly with other people around the world. So I think that's a real blessing too. Just
Hmm.
having the technologies where we can see each other and connect and have conversations. That's going to help meet that need for connection too. So I think the way to think of it is I hope everyone has someone personally they're with during this, especially when we're somewhat isolated in our homes.
Hmm.
But then we're also reaching out and connecting to others
Hmm.
throughout the day and into the evening, and not getting too addicted to Netflix. And I admit I'm one of those addicts. There's some great stuff out there,
Are you? Are you?
but
You are so totally judging me right now, and I don't
oh, I'm
appreciate
judging myself, Dave.
it.
There's great stuff on Netflix and Amazon Prime and PBS.
Hulu. You got to do Hulu.
Oh, I don't have
Yeah.
Hulu. That's the one I
Oh,
don't have. But
got to do it. Yeah. Um, I'm wondering, in your mind, what do you think are some of the most important lessons that we're learning right now that, on the other side of this, we really shouldn't forget? You know what I mean? Because as human
mhm.
beings, as soon as things start getting better, we're like, oh, okay, no problem. Everything's great. What do you think are some of
Mhm.
the lessons that are being learned right now that we need to carry forward afterward?
Well, quite a few. I would say number one, that we need connection. I hope that people are in this experience, they feel and long for connection.
Hmm.
And when we come out of this, which could be a few years, this may take a while,
Hmm.
that they're really more intentional about getting connection in their lives.
Sure.
Because the trick about, or the challenging thing about connection, I experienced this personally when I worked on Wall Street. I was around people all the time, but I really didn't have, I had crowded out, my schedule had crowded out time for friends, for my family, because I was working on some challenging mergers, and I just started not feeling well, but I didn't know why, Dave.
Hmm.
And I started trying to manage my moods, my emotions, needing more coffee, needing to
Sure.
kind of slip away midday and go for a run that kind of rev me up. And I needed more alcohol at night to slow down. And the wheels were coming off the bus. I could just see I was developing these addictions, but I had no idea why.
Hmm.
But in hindsight, I came to realize that I was lonely. I was around people, but I really wasn't connecting. I was all about tasks rather than relationships.
Right.
And there's a large percent of the population today, probably, well, half of the US population has one or more addictions that have serious negative consequences to their health. That's based on research from Steve Sussman at USC. So, it's a huge issue in our society. And this is an opportunity for the great reset, where we come out of this really valuing connection and relationships and not going back to becoming achievaholics.
Okay. Michael, that's great. I really appreciate the time you gave us here today, and don't be a stranger. And maybe we can talk again soon. Okay.
Definitely. Great to see you, Dave.